everyone! Well, I've been gone a while. I think the last upload I made was about half a year ago. So for everyone who left comments throughout all those months and asked me how I'm doing fine, as you can see. I'm all good, and thank you so much for all your messages. It was really quite touching to read all of them. And I'm sorry for not responding anytime sooner. The reason I stopped making videos all this time is because, well, first of all, it's been a stressful year, and I'm sure you can relate to that. But also my interest in orchids has been kind of dwindling a little bit. I still like them, as you can see, I still got them around, I still enjoy their flowers. I still enjoy, checking their progress. But my intense kind of like passion for them, where, I think about them all the time and it's my hobby to be messing around with them, that's kind of passed a bit. And these things, they tend to come and go for me anyway. So that's the main reason really why I haven't been making any videos. I haven't really felt the urge to talk about them with many people, and it's been quite stressful, frankly. So I didn't really have much mental space to work on these kind of projects. And making a video takes quite a lot of planning and actually quite a lot of effort, and you have to think of what your video is going to be about. You need to get the shots right, you need to clean things a little bit, which it's a step I kind of skipped over today, but you have to make things look pretty and presentable. Then you have to think of how to present everything and what to say. You have to edit together, and the editing is a big part. And all in all, it just takes a lot of energy to make a video like this. And it's energy that for last year I haven't really had. Things are getting better now, and of course we're also getting into spring, which always helps. Longer days, more sunlight makes a huge difference. So I thought, let's finally look back into YouTube and answer some comments and maybe even make another video for you guys. So today I thought, since it's been such a long time, I'll just do a very general update. I'll just show you how all the plants are doing, what I currently have in bloom. As you can see behind me, I do have something in bloom. And let's get started on that. So first, let's have a quick look at the orchid wall, which you saw behind me when I was talking before. So here we've got the Phalaenopsis tetraspis, or Speciosa Mickey's Purple, which is a really big plant. If you've been on my channel before, you probably know it. And as you can see, it is in pretty much full bloom. We've got a whole bunch of flowers here. Not these belong to the other plant next to it. But yeah, it has a lot of flowers. It's quite a lot more purple than it was before. So I think it's getting used to my environment and putting a little bit more energy into the flowers. And we still have a few buds coming in later. Ooh, difficult focusing. There we go. A bit off cracks with the camera. And then next to it here, we've got the Tetraspis C1. It's a very famous one, which has making a few buds as well. As you can see here, two here. This spike here is branching a bit. Another bud and more buds. And here too is a branching spike. Someone's also doing his best to create some blooms for us. And then here we have the Tetraspis C1 crossed with Samara. And you'll notice I have a lot of Tetraspis crosses or Speciosa crosses. I tend to really like the shape of the flower that those things have. So yeah, that one's also in bloom and making yet another bud right there. And beyond that, I've got some complex hybrids in bloom. Up there we have this big white Phalaenopsis, which it never did that great for me somehow. I know they're capable of way more than it's giving me, and the last time it blooms also didn't give me all that much, but it is blooming for a long, long time, so that's positive. And here we have the Phalaenopsis that my mum gave me. It's usually a crowd favorite because people like the flowers. It has this nice kind of like yellow to pink gradient with all the spotting on it. The display isn't as large as it was last time, and that's largely because I had this period of time where I completely neglected my orchids, and I think I didn't water them for like more than a month, close to 2 months I think. And this one took it kind of heavily because I think it's just a very heavy feeder, so it got quite unhappy and droopy. It seems to be pretty much recovered now, but yeah, it doesn't look quite as perky as it used to. Next to it, we've got another one I've had for quite a while, bought at a supermarket at some point, and no idea what it is, but it's pretty. And that one too is giving me some flowers now. This is one of the first orchids I got from IKEA, which has a little keiki right over here. And that keiki itself is also flowering. And you can see that the flowers are just the same between the keiki and the original plant. Maybe the original plant has slightly higher pigment load, a little brighter yellow. Barely any difference. Beyond that, we've got some orchids starting on spikes as well. See, down here we've got these, I think Speciosa crossed with LD Bearskin. No, Happy Eagle. There you go. And I haven't seen this one in bloom yet, so that's exciting. This one I think was also starting something, but it's still very, very tiny. Somewhere in there. Oh, I don't think you can see it, but it's like a tiny nubbin, like in there. And same goes for this one. I also saw a tiny nubbin somewhere. I think over there. You can see a tiny, tiny thing right there at the base. And as you can see, all these leaves are kind of like dusty. Because, as I said, I have not been paying that much attention to them and I have not bothered to clean them up. So that's all that. And we've got the Samara here, which is also making another spike, as you can see over there. Yeah, and everything's just growing. They haven't done anything spectacular the last year. I do think that my new apartment here has less optimal lighting than my previous apartment. So mostly what I have in bloom tends to be Phalaenopsis. And, well, yeah, you might know those are kind of like the lower light orchids. The orchids that require more light, they tend to not really bloom. I haven't really had much bloom. And up here I've got my two more Dimorphorus orchids. Let's make sure you're focused. So I've got the small seedling sized one that I got. It's not really looking so great. It's still alive, it's still okay, but it's not doing so well. I think it didn't like the move at all. And here's the bigger one. And that one's actually doing okay. It's grown quite a bit since I've gotten it. And it's currently growing quite a lot of roots as well when I last checked. So those are doing fine. Then next I've just got this collection of different orchids here. And as you can see, I did not bother to clean up. Actually, give me one moment. There we go, it's a little neater. Didn't take much time. So here we've got a few other orchids and they get even less light the further away from the window. Yeah, these as a result haven't really bloomed. I've got some Tolumnias here, which I got a while back and put into self-watering leca. They're all growing really well. They've made some nice new growths and they're just starting on some newer new growths and they're becoming nice little clumps. But they haven't been flowering and I am pretty much certain that that's 100%, because of the lack of sunlight in this apartment. I've got one northwestern facing window and it just really doesn't do enough. And here we have a big bubble vine that I got from a friend of mine. It's doing great actually. As you can see, I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4 different new growths. So it's growing really well and it actually has flowered for me twice already. As far as I know, bubble vines are also pretty low light orchids, so that's probably why. So this one's doing okay. So far I haven't seen any sign of a flower spike on the new growth yet, but we shall see. Now here I've got my Oncidium Sherry Baby. I was so excited when I got that. I got this one pretty early on in my collection. However, it has literally never done well for me. It's always has some struggle finishing off growths. It always starts them and then abandons them. And it has never made me a flower spike, despite the fact that I've had it, like I said, for a long time now. I think a good 2.5 years, 3 years. Math is hard. So yeah, it's just kind of here because I've lost interest in it, quite honestly. It's an uninteresting plant. It doesn't do enough. And here I've got Oswald, which is little Dendrobium kingianum. I was excited earlier because it looked like he was going to make a little spike over here. But as you can see, it dried out. Probably my fault. I forgot to water it, as I said. All of these orchids have a bit of a rough year. And then back here I've got just a general Dendrobium. It's a no ID with purple flowers, and no matter how much abuse I throw its way, it doesn't care and just keeps living, keeps growing, and keeps flowering. So, it's a trooper, this one. And here is the mini mark, and it is not looking that great, despite the fact that this is one of the few orchids that I did keep a bit of an eye on. Now, some of you might know that mini marks are kind of notorious for not being very robust at all. Some people say that they most of the ones you can buy have some sort of virus. Now, I wouldn't really know about it, but it's definitely not as vigorous as most of my other hybrids. So yeah, I mean, it's still hanging on, it's still doing okay, but it definitely hasn't been improving. And I can see that the bottom leaves are yellowing as well. So who knows what's in the future for this little guy. Here you've got the Paphiopedilum Saints Within, which is by far my largest orchid. It is humongous. It makes a really nice foliage plant actually, because it's like kind of like all over the place and imposing. But it's actually flowered twice. I bought it once with a developing spike, and then later it created its own spike again. So that was a really nice surprise. Which also, you know, gives me hope that maybe it has enough light to flower again. But it might also be that I just had enough energy stored to flower the second time, and it hasn't really flowered since. Then again, these are slow growers, so maybe we'll get something in a few months. It is finishing off some growths now, so. And then here we have a little, what's your name? Completely forgot. Oranges Fatuosa, that was it. Oranges Fatuosa. Which is doing okay. It's not really thriving. It hasn't made nearly as many roots as I would have liked it to so far. But as you can see, it's making new leaves. You know, it made this one here, which was a pretty big one. It's making this one now. So it's a slow grower, but it's a grower, you know. So at least it's doing something. It's not just slowly declining. So I'm okay with it. And then there's the other Paphiopedilum that I have. It's another one of those big multifloral strap-leaved ones. It's the Lady Isabel. She's doing fine as well. No issues here, just calmly growing. I haven't gotten any new flowerings from her, but she's of course also a lot smaller than the Saints Within. So we'll just keep hoping that we'll make a flower spike someday soon. Here by the window, we've got a couple of other orchids. They are styled out like this because these are very highlight orchids and I want them to bloom and they're not blooming. So yeah, I've put them all out here, and as you can see, most of them are my Catasatinae, and one of them is a Cattleya or a Procatavola, I think, which is my golden peacock, which I quite like a lot, and it made this wonderful big growth last season, but it didn't bloom. There's no sheet in there. So again, I think it's just not getting enough light, so I threw it there right from the window in the hope that this will finally be enough for it to bloom. And it's making a new growth now, right here. So hopefully it will, that growth will be able to bloom. And then with the Catasatinae, which I'm kind of sad about. My previous and last video that I made about half a year ago was telling you about my Catasatinae fail at the end of the summer, the growing period. Well, you can tell they just haven't done well. The new bulbs are tiny. The Wine Delight here is recovering with a nice little growth, so that won't be fine. This one here isn't doing much yet, but I think I saw a tiny growth, and this is the Cassian Panang Jumbo Sweetheart. Then this one is the Cycnoches Gutulatum, that was it. And that one's not done that well because I kept it in bark. I was lazy, I didn't repot it, but then of course I also forgot to water, and if it's in bark then that's a little bit more difficult on the plant. This is the Cycnoches Warwickii, which is actually doing fine. That's one of the plants that did just fine last year. And then here we've got the Frecklechiara After Dark. I haven't seen any signs of new growth yet. Last year's growth wasn't very spectacular. I also didn't get any blooms from it. Pretty sad. So yeah, hopefully I'll do better this year. This one also didn't give me blooms, the Wine Delight, which was very sad because it gave me a fantastic show the year before. And here, this is the thing, this is the plant that's really making me very sad right now. It's my second favorite plant. It's the Cloecia Grace Dunn, and well, there's not much left of it actually. And that's entirely my fault. I tried to divide it for a trade together with the After Dark. But it was too late into the season. There were already a lot of roots growing into the actual media, which is exactly when you should not be dividing an catasetum. And the Cloecia took that very, very hard. So I'm praying that somewhere there's still an active eye and enough energy to start making a growth and to kind of recover the plant. But I'm afraid she's a goner. But we'll see. Here we have my trusty vanilla vine. It's always been in the kitchen like this. My hope is one day they'll become big enough to give me flowers and then make my own vanilla. Now in this house or apartment with the lack of sunlight, I don't think that will ever actually happen. But so far it's turned into a nice bushy plant. When I first got it, it was like, you know, this big and not wrapped around itself. Just, you know, this was where the growth points were from soil up. I wrapped it around here a number of times. And then I got some more sticks, so it grew taller, and I wrapped it around there about 2 or 3 times. And now the growth points are, you know, this is one of them. It's almost near the top again. So in a few months or so, I think about 2 months or 3 months, I can wrap it around again. So it's always been a good grower for me actually. This year a little less than before, probably because of my, neglect. But in general, I'm still pretty happy with that plant. I really like it still. The variegation of the leaves is pretty. I just like it. It doesn't need to flower for me. I'm happy with it. I wish I had a nicer spot for it, but I'm trying to give it some good sunlight still. And there's not much of that in my apartment, so this is the best I've got for it. And here we got the leftover of one of my biggest failures this year. And that is the Masdevallias. I made some updates of them about them, and they were doing really well actually, and I got some blooms and everything, and it was doing super promising. And then I just lost interest and neglected my plants and left them out the entire winter, and it got far too cold for them. Masdevallias are cold growers, but it doesn't mean they are happy with -2 temperatures and things like that. So that was just complete neglect. So this was that orange hybrid, and up here, well, that's kind of what's left of the red one, which I've never actually seen in flower. God, what was that? What's the species name? Oh, Masdevallia hybrid. I don't know. Oh, that was the orange one. Hold on. This was Masdevallia coccinea. I already kind of threw out the orange one, I think. But yeah, that was a big failure. I just completely neglected them. I think that was pretty much all of them. I think you threw the entire collection. You might notice it's shrunk a bit, and that's because there's a few other plants that died and I threw away because of my neglect. There were 3 seedlings which didn't make it because, if you neglect your plants, the first to go are probably the seedlings. And beyond that, I think there were 1 or 2 other orchids that I never really cared about as much as the rest, which I decided to throw out when I stopped really taking care of them properly. So it has shrunk down a bit. Actually, I forgot to show you 2 of them. Right up here. That's one, and there's the other. So starting with this one, it's actually one of my favorites. It's the Phalaenopsis mock choi yu, which is Gigantia crossed with, oh my god, I've forgotten, Violaceae, I believe. And I hope you can see it. I can't see the camera screen right now. I hope it's in focus. It's okay. It's not doing great. It's been better, for sure. It lost a lot of roots when I didn't take care of it properly, and it's busy regrowing them now. You can see a tiny one coming out the top there. But I hope to see it in bloom again soon, because that was definitely one of my favorites. And here we've got the Gigantia crossed with Sumatrana, I think, David I. And it's always done quite well for me. It's always had these nice cascading roots and this nice cascading flower spike with it, which we occasionally bump our heads against. It's still doing fine, it's doing well. You can see that the leaves it makes are still large enough, although it doesn't create many at all. I think it's been a while since it's made a new one. And it actually just keeps making flowers. So I think when I got it, the flower spike was this long, and it just kept on elongating. And as you can see from the light green color of the spike, it is busy elongating once again. So it will be even easier to hit our heads on the flower spike. I need to find a new place for it. It's always difficult when you have a rental apartment and you can't drill, so you have to use existing holes and stuff. It's a bit challenging. All right, now we're really done. I've shown you everything, I'm pretty sure. I hope you enjoyed this little update. I might be making more videos in the future, but I won't be uploading regularly at all. It will just be whenever something strikes my fancy or I want to share something that I'll be making a quick upload. Don't worry, it doesn't mean that I'm doing poorly or something happened. I'm doing fine. I just, interests are shifting and changing all the time. And sometimes you have more time and more mental space, and sometimes you don't. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're not too disappointed by hearing that I'm not planning to return to YouTube regularly. And how open would you be to maybe potentially sometimes getting a video about watercolor painting on this channel? Because I know it's called Orchid Nerd, and maybe I can try watercoloring in Orchid. But that's the new thing I'm looking at the whole time. So yeah, it might be that I might upload a video of that at some point. Let me know in the comments. So again, thanks for looking out for me. Thanks for sending me all those wonderful comments and messages. It's very, very sweet of you all. And I'm doing fine, and I'm lucky to have such a wonderful community. So I'm also quite happy to actually finally be sort of back and to say hello to you guys. So yeah, thanks for watching. Leave any comments you like down in the description down below, and hit that like button if you've liked the video. Press subscribe if you want to see more videos, although again I cannot promise how often I'll be uploading. And I'll see you next time. Bye guys.